Kate Christie is Australia's top time management expert to some big clients, including the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet and the European Union, which I'm sure would be super interesting. She has taught thousands globally how to save 30 plus precious hours a month in time, and then how to use that to design and live their best lives. The best-selling author of 5 books, Kate's fifth book is called The Life List: Master Every Moment and Live an Audacious Life. And it's a call to action for women who want more. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Julie. It's lovely to be here.
Yes, and I can't wait to chat about your book because I've had the privilege of reading the first couple of chapters and it's just amazing. So, really keen to dive into this with you today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, this podcast is all about leading you. And this is such an awesome topic for it because we're all leaders of our own lives. And this is exactly what you're talking about. First of all, I love to ask you this question, which is if you were the leader of the world for a day, what would be the one thing that you would change and why?
Such a good question. And look, I'm sure you've had people respond with, world peace and harmony and good relationships between all religions. So I'm not going to do that because all of your other guests have solved for that. So I would say that if I was leader of the world for one day, I would make sure that I'd really love to focus on women and to focus and allow women to have that time that they need. So I would give every woman a day off to sit down and think about her life and to reflect on her life and her goals and to consider her backstory and then to design her future story, knowing that yes, we all have a backstory, but that doesn't dictate what your future story is going to be. So I would give
Mm.
every single woman the time to design what that future story looks like. And before I kind of get howled down by all the guys listening saying, well, what about us? Please jump on board. You can also have the day off to design what your future story looks like. Um, as we're also solving for world peace and harmony and goodwill to all men.
Yes, I love that, Kate. Because we need to be equal here. So I think that would be something that many women would find quite foreign in terms of just having the time to just sit down for an entire day and reflect on their backstory. So I love that. I think I would vote for you.
Okay, thank you. I got one vote. Got one vote.
Yeah.
I'm going to
I
vote
love it.
for two, so that's 2 votes.
Yes, fantastic. So now let's talk about your book, The Life List, which, as I mentioned before, it's a call to action for women to start putting themselves first. But I'd love to know what was the catalyst for you to write this book?
Yeah, great. So, look, I'm my background. I'm a time management specialist, productivity specialist, and I focused for so long on helping my audience get their time under control and to reclaim hours of lost time. And it's always been very sort of productivity and efficiency based. And it's been floating around in my brain for a while that well, now that you've got your time back and you've got your time under control, what are you actually going to do with that? And so that had been sort of floating around in my brain for a while. Enter COVID 2020, and kind of the world turned upside down, and we went into lockdown. And a month after that, in April 2020, my ex-husband, who I'd been married to for 22 years, had 3 beautiful children with, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And 11 months later, he had passed away, and he was only 54. And it was every bit as brutal as you can imagine, in terms of obviously not only going through that during COVID and the restrictions around COVID, but um, watching this beautiful, charismatic, vital man succumb to this illness, and also having to try and support my children through that process of grieving their father before he'd even died. And they were all older teens, young 20s at the time, so still babies, still kids. And I don't think, we ever kind of can cope with the death of a parent, regardless of how old we are. But watching them have to go through that so young was incredibly difficult. And there was nothing I could do to make it better apart from just be there with them and be there with him, because there was never going to be a happy ending to that story. And going through that process, I guess, and watching him decline so quickly, and having those discussions with him about everything that he was going to miss out on, and the agony of that for him, because he was obviously incredibly well aware of everything that he was going to not be able to see and participate in. And life's too short, and it's trite, and we say it, and I used to say it if I wanted to eat another donut kind of thing, but it became something that I was very then fixated on, in terms of life really is too short, and we can't put off till later what we can do now. And so that was the catalyst to writing the book. About 9 months after he passed away, I wrote an article about it, a very brief article, for CEO World Magazine, where I spoke about his passing, and the resolutions that I'd made to live a very different life. And I just had this list, and there was some deeper things on the list, like, I want to climb mountains, or I want to, push myself out of my comfort zone, and I want to do this and I want to do that. But then there was a lot of little things on there, like I want to tell my kids I love them every single day, even when they're shitting me. I'm going to cuddle them every day. I'm not going to sweat the small stuff. I'm not going to vacuum as often, So it was this mixed list of, I guess, resolutions as to how I wanted to live my life very differently as a result of what we'd been through. And I just got this huge outpouring of responses, from around the world. People saying, "Oh my God, I love the idea of a life list instead of a bucket list." And can I steal your list, or can I borrow your list? And it just became really apparent to me that I'd tapped into something that people were really yearning for. I think probably partly coming out of COVID, or being in COVID, people wanted to live very differently. They wanted to, COVID was a time of very deep reflection for many of us in terms of the lives we're living and what's most important to us. And I think the timing was right to then put this book out into the world, to say, hey, listen, life is too short. Don't create a bucket list. Don't create a list of things you want to do before you die, because I don't want to. That's too late. I want to create a list of everything I want to do while I'm still young enough to live it, and that was the catalyst.
Wow. There's, first of all, thank you for so, generously and vulnerably sharing your story. And I think you share that so beautifully in your book. That must have been just such a confronting time, particularly with your situation. And also, it puts things into perspective so quickly, and you're having to support, your ex-husband and also your children. It's just, yeah, such a huge time for you. And I love that distinction that you made between the life list and the bucket list. And I might get you to explain that a little bit more, because you're so right in terms of priorities, and there has been, research done to support that, through COVID, people really assess their priorities. But I also think they're a little bit lost. It's like, okay, I do want more. I need to live differently, but I'm not sure how to
Exactly.
do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that was very true of the discussions I was having with the people around me, uh, in terms of people wanting to live very differently, but just not quite sure or knowing how to start or where to start. And so that's where the practical part of me comes in. And the book, has frameworks in there to show you exactly how to write your life list and how to design it. And then once you've designed it, well, there's another framework in terms of how do you actually implement it, because unless you implement it, it's just a list. We can all write a list. So
Yeah.
actually have to then go and live out these goals. And, my life list is going to look very different to yours, and yours is going to look different to the next person. So it's about understanding what's important to you to input into your life list. And I guess, to your question of that distinction between a life list versus a bucket list, firstly, a bucket list is often as I said, it's a list of things you want to do before you die. And so, these are the things you put off until, oh, well, when I'm 65 and I retire, here are the things I'm going to do. And I'm just like, well, no, I'm not prepared to wait that long, because, you know, Dan passed away when he was 54. He didn't have a chance. He put stuff off till later, and it was too late. Um, so that's kind of the first distinction, is the life list is about embracing life now, and doing it now. And, as women, of my age, women sort of, I'm turning 53, but kind of women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, we are the most educated, healthy, wealthy, active women of our generation ever.
Yeah.
And I'm all for, it's our turn. Let's go do it now, girls. Um, the other thing that is different about a bucket list and a life list is bucket lists. I did a lot of research on this. Bucket lists kind of predominantly seem to be founded around experiences and travel and adventure. And a life list is not. We are multifaceted human beings. We have lots of things that make up what makes us happy and what gives us joy. So I talk about making sure that we're setting goals across various chapters in our life. So, not, of course, there's travel and adventure and experiences in there, but then there's also our wealth, our health, our lifestyle, the environment, giving. We're at an age now where we've acquired a phenomenal amount of knowledge and wisdom. So how are we going to give that back? How do we contribute our knowledge? And making sure that we're covering off all of the elements that make us up and that are important to us. So it's not just about a wish list of travel destinations, it's a life list of how I want to live my life very differently starting from today.
Yes, I love that. And so what has your life list given you? Like what's been the key thing that it's given you?
Look, I think that I really like that question. It's given me a lot of joy, and it's also given me a lot of purpose. And I have this incredible sense of momentum where I'm doing stuff, like I'm actually, and as I tick off these goals, I'm generating this momentum, but it becomes very addictive and enticing, and so I'm happier, and I know that's probably easy to say, because the last 2 years, it wouldn't be that hard to be happier after the 2 years we've been through, or the number of years we've been through. But it's more than that. It's giving me a sense of purpose. It's giving me a lot of joy. It's giving me energy. So it's very much changed my whole approach to how I'm living. And I'm still doing all of the normal stuff. I still turn up and I go to work, and I still, spend a lot of time with my family and with my kids. And there's all of that, but I'm deliberately carving out really good slabs of time for the
Mm,
things that fill my own cup.
I
And
love it.
it's wonderful, and no one's resentful of it. It's interesting. I was, sort of a little bit worried, were the kids going to get a bit annoyed, or and they're just thrilled. They're loving this journey I am. And my daughter said to me the other day, "Mum, I just haven't seen you this happy for such a long time. You're so happy." She said, "You're
Oh,
glowing. You're glowing." And God, that meant so much to me. It was so beautiful, but it's true. I am happy. I feel fantastic. So that's what it's given to me. It's given me this drive, this purpose, and I haven't felt it for a long time. You know, coming out of our separation sort of 5 years ago, and throwing myself into the business and the kids and survival mode, and then
Mm.
my mum passed away, and then we just got through that, and then COVID, and then Dan got diagnosed, and it was just, we were in bloody survival mode. And I feel like I've finally kind of ruled a line under that where I can actually now live with a lot of joy.
Mm.
And in saying that, I also recognize that, we've all got a backstory. Everyone has a backstory. Everyone listening to this will have had pain and loss and grief, trauma, across all the elements of our lives. You know, we've got a backstory. So it's not about, this isn't about me saying, oh God, look how bad it's been. And, please feel sorry for me. This is about saying it's okay. Let's acknowledge and talk about our loss and our grief and our sadness, but then reflect on that and use that to kind of craft and create the life you want to live from now onwards.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And everyone deserves to be happy, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you deserve to be happy
I know.
and be glowing and be doing the things that you want to do. And I love that intentionality that, this journey has now taken you towards. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Great. And I feel like I'm on this train and I don't want to get off. I'm not getting
yeah.
off this train. I mean, I'll get off to climb the mountain, and I'll get off to, go plant 1,000 trees, and I'll get off to hug my kids, but I'm getting back on for the next part of the journey.
Yeah, I love that. So, question, especially for women, because more often than not, I hear how busy women are.
Hmm.
They're constantly busy. They're a busy mum. They're a busy wife. They're a busy executive. They're a busy everything.
Hmm.
And they do genuinely struggle to put themselves first. So, is there a secret to how we find the time to make the life list?
Yeah, look, the women generally are quite giving. In our nature, we're sort of nurturers. I'm sure all your listeners, men and women, are busy and feeling busy. Busy has sort of acquired a bit of a social status, a bit of a badge of honor that, how
Yeah.
are you? Oh, I'm busy. Oh my God, I'm busy too. And then we talk about how busy we all are. And, the first thing I'd say to that is it's not a club you want to be in. Don't join the busy club. And if you find yourself in it and talking about it, then change your language.
Mm.
When people ask you how you are, tell them that you're productive, tell them you're working at pace, tell them that you've got, you're doing things that you enjoy. Have a different type of conversation.
Mm.
In terms of carving out that time, we need to do another podcast, Julie, on Productivity 101, and I can give you like 100 strategies for how your readers, your listeners are going to find time to do this. But
Mm.
to kind of encapsulate it into one thing, one useful tip that will help for now is I want you to think about yourself as an appointment with your most important client, or your most important stakeholder if you're an executive. And so it might be the CEO, it might be your most remunerative client. Think about that most important key stakeholder in your life, and how when you put them into your calendar, you highlight it in red and you prepare for that meeting, and there is no way on earth you would ever not turn up to that meeting. I want you to take that same thinking and lock yourself into your calendar as the key stakeholder in this scenario, where you're going to give yourself at least an hour a week to start thinking about, what does my perfect life look like? Treat yourself as that key stakeholder and put yourself into your calendar. And just like you're going to turn up for your boss, you got to turn up for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. It's a real flipping mindset, I find, and of course the change in language as well, in terms of making you a priority. Because then, of course, once you've done the list, of course, you have to do what you've put on the list,
Yeah.
which, so you can keep that time or, move the time around to make sure that then enables you to live the life that you're wanting to live. Because I would love for people to take this on board and to not have to have a severe health diagnosis or, a major life event like you've had for this to happen. There's so much in your story. There's so much in your story that people can learn from and go, I want to live my life now while I can,
Yeah.
because you never know what's around the corner.
That's it. And you
And
don't want to be prompted by a crisis.
yeah,
And unfortunately, so many of us do. We wait until there is the
yeah,
crisis and it gives us time. And all of a sudden, we find the time to reflect on it
yeah,
and make changes and do so with a feeling of gratitude, which is great. But
yes.
it kind of proves the point that there's nothing stopping you from doing it right now.
That's 100%. And I often, even, for myself, when I was faced with my diagnosis,
Mm.
I always thought I was pretty good at prioritizing myself. And now I look back on my calendar pre diagnosis
Mhm.
and I see how packed it was. And I'm like, have a look in your calendar to understand where your priorities are, because they're right in front of you. And I bet it doesn't include you.
Exactly. It's interesting
So,
because I do a lot of, from a productivity perspective, I do a lot of productivity and time management workshops with corporates. And, they bring me in to work with the team to work out where they're actually investing their time, where they should be investing their time, and so forth. And part of that process is I get them to do a time audit. So each person maps their time from the minute they get up to the minute they go to bed, and they have to indicate every single time they switch task and every time they're interrupted. So you could get pages of data. And what floors me again and again and again when I see these timesheets is how very little people build themselves into their own day.
mm,
At best, you'll get someone squeezing a run or a walk in at lunchtime. And sometimes someone will squeeze in maybe a gym session after work. But that's it. There's nothing else that I see on those timesheets where people are actually prioritizing filling their own cup. And
yeah.
if we are constantly working and depleting the cup without refilling it, how could we possibly turn up as our best selves at work or in our lives with anything but kind of working with our adrenaline and massive depletion? And
Mm,
it's so rare for me when I'm working with my clients to see a timesheet where someone's actually prioritizing themselves beyond like half an hour. Some people are squeezing in toilet breaks. Most people are eating lunch at their desk.
yeah.
It's so damaging. It's so damaging to your organization because your people are just not productive when they're working like that. But from a designing and living your best life perspective, how can you possibly do that?
Mm. Yeah, I totally agree, because you need to feel yourself before you can to enable you to be your best self. And if you're leading others, to enable you to be the best leader, and therefore into your personal life to be the best partner, mother, whatever
Exactly.
it is for others, you've got to be the best version of you first.
Exactly.
100% agree. Yeah. Yeah. So now, Kate, how can people get in touch with you? Because on the day that we're recording this, your new book is out there.
It's on the shelves, baby. Um, so look, the life list is. I got the distribution list from the publisher the other day, and it's amazing. It's in Dymocks stores nationally, QBD stores nationally. It's at readings in lots of little indie stores. It's online, Booktopia and Amazon. And you can reach out to me at my website, which is www.katechristie.com.au.
Beautiful. And I will share all the links in the show notes with the podcast as well. So, Kate, it's been wonderful chatting to you. And I have a final question, which I'd love to know, which is,
Yeah.
what is next on your life list?
Oh, I look so exciting. Um, so I am flirting this year with the digital nomad piece. So I have just booked 7 weeks in Bali
Oh
from
my
mid
God.
July until the end of August. And I'm going to live and work there and practice, being a digital nomad. I reckon it's doable. And I have then um, one of the other things on my life list that has been there forever is I've always wanted to learn to surf. My kids surf. My eldest son is an incredible surfer. And I've always wanted to, and I've always felt awkward and, oh my God, are people looking at my bum falling out of my bathers and, what will I look like in a wetsuit and I'm so unco. And I finally realized no one cares. No one's looking at me. They're not going to be looking at me. So I am partnering with an incredible Australian organisation called Surf Getaways, and I am the last week of August in Bali. They are going to teach me to surf, and I'm going to work with their guests on creating their own life lists and implementing and living out a life list. So um, it's a beautiful partnership because I get to learn to surf and to share the message of the life list, and their guests get to learn to surf and to create their own life list. So they're two of the biggies on my life list for this year. I'm super excited.
My gosh, that's amazing.
I
I
know.
can't wait to hear how you
About
go with
writing
all of
a
that.
book. Yeah, I get to do all this really good stuff now.
Yes, fantastic. Kate, thank you for being so open and sharing your story with us. I really admire what you're doing, and thank you for being such a fantastic role model for so many.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for having me on your incredible podcast. I was just delighted to when you reached out to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Kate.